Michael, let's take a look ahead to Saturday's big fights. In Chicago, there's a rematch between Juan Diaz and Paul Malignaggi. They fought in August. It was a controversial conclusion. A lot of people thought Malignaggi deserved to win. It was kind of reminiscent of the Williams-Martinez fight in that it's not that Diaz won the fight, but one of the judges had it one-sided for Juan Diaz. Texas's Gail Van Hoy had it basically 10 rounds to 2 for the Baby Bull, the former lightweight champ. This rematch is not a fight that I'm terribly excited about. I thought that the first fight was good for a Paulie Malignaggi fight, but I think what's very important and what I think the boxing world, fans in particular, are going to be paying attention to in light of recent bad scores. The first Diaz-Malignaggi fight, the recent lightweight fight between Ali Funeka and Joan Guzman, and this past Saturday's fight between Williams and Martinez. I think the fans and the boxing world are looking for the judges to do their job right. And for the sake of our sport, let's hope they do. But what about the fighters?
They're both pumped, I can say that for sure. They're both excited about this fight. First with Diaz. Diaz told me that two things. One, he said he was surprised by the style that Malignaggi fought him with in the first fight. He expected Malignaggi to be the Malignaggi under Buddy McGirt, sort of like a little bit slower, a little bit more plodding, a guy who maybe is willing to exchange...
Stands his ground a little bit more.
Stands his ground and exchange punches. That's not the Malignaggi who showed up. The Malignaggi showed up was the old Paulie Malignaggi who moved, and I think it surprised Diaz a little bit. At least that's what he says. So he's going to make adjustments, and he's a lot more confident going into the second fight. Diaz also wants to remove any doubt whatsoever that might have tainted his victory in the first fight. He thinks he won the first fight, obviously, but some people don't. He wants to go in this time and take care of business and win the fight convincingly. As far as Malignaggi goes, Paul's feeling very good about himself now. He's no longer with McGirt. He's reverted back to his old style, which was very effective. He's obviously a very good boxer, very quick, athletic, and he feels good about things. He especially feels good about fighting Diaz in neutral territory in Chicago. Obviously, a big element to the first fight was the fact that it took place in Diaz's hometown of Houston.
Right, and Malignaggi had predicted that something dirty was going to happen, that it wasn't a level playing field, and well, Van Hoy kind of proved him right, which is probably the real reason this fight is happening. Apart from just the controversy that fans saw, is that Malignaggi, he was the squeaky door. He's getting the oil in this rematch. He complained going into the fight, and he complained immediately after the fight. He's getting what he wants. I tell you what do you think is the outcome this time around?
Honestly, I don't know. I think it's a very, very even fight, to be honest with you. I can see almost the exact same thing happening again. I think I lean a little bit towards Diaz. When he told me that he's going to adjust to the Malignaggi he didn't expect the first time, I sort of believed him. Diaz was left with a bad feeling. He thought he won the fight, and he did win the fight, on the scorecards. But a lot of people didn't think he won the fight, and I think that bothers him. He wants to remove any doubt whatsoever that he can beat Malignaggi and then sort of go on from there.
Well, speaking of removing doubt, that's not the only fight on that HBO broadcast, Michael. Victor Ortiz makes his return since the first KO loss of his career in a wonderfully brutal fight against Marcos Maidana just a few months ago here in Los Angeles. And you actually talked to Ortiz. Can you give us a little bit of insight of where this kid's head's at? Because there's a lot of questions about it, particularly following that post-fight interview with Max Kellerman. What do you see?
Well, first of all, Victor was very grouchy when I talked to him on the phone, which might be a good sign. He's in his fighter mode. He's trying to make weight, and this is what happens to a lot of these guys. So he seems to me like he's very, very focused on this. He did not want to talk about the Maidana fight. He said the media keeps asking him about it, and he tries to answer, and he'll say a little bit, but he just doesn't want to get into it. He wants to look forward. But one thing I do know is that what he said after the fight, he sort of indicated that, he said he didn't deserved to take that punishment, and he sort of indicated they needed to rethink things, which we all took to mean he needs to rethink whether he's going to continue fighting or something along those lines. He said he did not mean that. He said that, first of all, he just gotten his head beat in, right?
So he probably had a concussion.
Yeah, so he wasn't thinking very clearly. He didn't mean any of that. He was in a tough fight, and he didn't mean to say that he's thinking about retiring. He said this is what he does, this is what he loves, and he's going to continue doing this. As far as this matchup goes, first of all, Diaz is not a pushover. He's a tough customer. That's a tough fight for Ortiz, but it might be a good matchup. because Diaz isn't a terrific boxer. He's a tough guy. He'll keep coming, and maybe that's
he's
perfect.
getting a little bit long in the tooth. I mean, he's an old fighter who was retired for a while.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. He has a good beard,
yeah.
and he applies pressure, and you wonder if Ortiz can't get him out of there in a couple of rounds, is he going to start having flashbacks to Marcos Maidana? What do you think happens in that fight?
It could happen. You know what I think is going to happen is he's going to do against Diaz what he should have done against Maidana, and that's use his boxing ability. He's a terrific athlete. He's a terrific boxer. I think he's got a lot of pop on his punches, too. He put Maidana down, also remember.
Twice.
Yeah, twice. So I think he's going to use his boxing skills, having learned from the first experience. And I think, I don't know if he's going to knock him out, but I think he's going to outbox Diaz. But we'll learn a lot about Victor Ortiz. If he doesn't come through this fight, then we really have to wonder about what his future holds.
Well, we're wondering about the future of another Southern California-based 140-pound standout, Timothy Bradley. Nobody's going to question Timothy Bradley's heart, his dedication, his focus. He is an undefeated title holder. He is making a defense against an undefeated mandatory challenger in Lamont Peterson, who is also undefeated, young, in his prime, probably a little bit of a better boxer, definitely a better technician. And yet, nobody's really talking about this fight. What gives about Bradley-Peterson, which takes place, by the way, in Rancho Mirage, California?
I think we all recognize that Bradley's a very good fighter now. He's beaten some very good fighters. I think the problem that Bradley has is he's just a fighter. There's nothing about him that you could latch onto that makes him particularly interesting. And so I think that's something that he's going to need to overcome, whether that's just a matter of him keep winning or whether he has a signature fight. I don't know. I like to compare him to Andre Berto. Berto is not the same style, but we recognize him as a very good fighter.
Not the most vibrant personality.
Exactly. He did have the fight against Luis Collazo, which was a terrific fight, also a Fight of the Year candidate. But now he's stepping up to fight Shane Mosley, and that's very significant. If he beats Mosley, that's it. He's an elite fighter.
He'll make a name for himself.
And you can no longer ignore Andre Berto. I compare Bradley to Berto in that way. Maybe Bradley, let's assume for a second that he gets by Peterson, which is not guaranteed.
Yeah,
by
I
any
see it
means.
as a 50-50
yeah,
fight.
Yeah, that's a very good fight. But let's say he does get past him. I think he needs to step up, figure out a way to fight a big-name guy and beat that guy, and then I think he's where he'd like to be.
Well, we're talking about two young Southern California junior welterweights in Victor Ortiz and Timothy Bradley. If Ortiz beats Antonio Diaz and if Bradley beats Lamont Peterson, I think somewhere down the line, not in the first quarter or even the first half of 2010, maybe not even in 2010, but I think that their trajectory should be pointed towards each other because Ortiz, a Kansas native, has lived in Southern California, the Oxnard area, for the last 7 or 8 years of his life. He actually has a decent fan base there. I think a little over 8,000 people came out to see him fight Marcos Maidana at the Staples Center. That's a good sign. As I said, Bradley-Peterson has taken place in Rancho Mirage. That's right next to Palm Springs, which Bradley is a native of. He's building up, gradually, fight by fight, a fan base in that desert area of Southern California. If he can continue to win and continue to build that base, you put these two young men in the ring together, I would say, Staples Center is a natural. Who knows? Maybe we can get 10, 15,000 people out to see that fight, and I think it would be a terrific fight. Whoever wins that definitely makes a name for themselves. Well, that's all for December 12th. There are more fights later in the month, and we're going to take a quick look at them with a 3-minute drill.